Yes, hello everybody. It is Tom Sykes, the Royalist, here with Paula Froelich.
Hi guys.
We are both very smartly dressed because Paula and I have been recording her segment on my podcast. So you can see I've got my fancy background up behind me. I'm covered in, frankly, shameful amounts of makeup. But it was incredibly exciting because the star guest, obviously the star guest was Paula, but the second star guest was Tom Bower, the author of Betrayal, which is this amazing new book about Harry and Meghan. And that is going to land tonight, I'm told, at 5 p.m. Eastern, New York time. But last week, the first one didn't actually land till 6 p.m. I think they were uploading it. But they're promising me it'll be more on time today. Paula, it was so great to see you there, but we had to come back on and do this live, because we've got so much makeup on that it would be like very hard to take it off. It's going to take about an hour. And B, because we also have loads of other stuff that we wanted to talk about Meghan and Harry. But as I had Tom Bower talking about Meghan and Harry, it would have been too much, because Paula has got a couple of scooplets basically about the Aussie tour. So Paula, hit us.
All right, and then I will hit you, Tom. However, I do want a preview of what Tom Bower said, because I'm dying. He's so fascinating. Of course, everyone knows he's the author of Betrayal, the new book coming out at the end of March. So the funniest thing for me was, anyone who follows me on Substack or News Nation knows I had the big old scoop that Meghan and Harry are indeed likely going into Australia with as ever in mind. Now, the funniest part about this was she and her team had publicly said, absolutely not. We have no intention of going into Australia. And then I found the trademark in Australia registered. And of course, it's all over. No credit. Thanks, Daily Mail, Sky News, Telegraph, whatnot. However, the funniest list is it's got stuff like an as ever gardening hose, or like it goes into the minutia of things. There's also clothing. There's, of course, teas and candles, assuming they're going to be wickless candles, and all this other stuff. And I have been bombarded. Thank you, Australia. I love you. I've been bombarded with Australians going, dude, I can go to Target and get that for half the price. Which, of course, Tom, leads into our conversation of last week, which is her and her flowers and tea and honey. She's charging $300 tax and shipping. And you can literally go to Whole Foods, a very expensive grocery store, and get all that for like $50-$60, depending on what flowers you want. So it's another cash grab. Then I was hearing that although she is doing the girls' getaway or girls' weekend at the Intercontinental in Coogee, also pronounced Coogee, but Coogee doesn't rhyme with Poogie, which is what the locals call it. So, because there's so much fecal matter and smell, and apparently Coogee is the Aboriginal word for smelly. And she apparently is not staying there. She is staying with Harry at a 5-star hotel in Sydney, because although the Intercontinental is a nice brand, it's not a new hotel. They're refurbishing, and the pool is apparently not even open yet, according to my sources. So I'm hoping they get on that for the girls' weekend. I don't know, Tom, what do you think?
That's a lot to unpack. I want to go back to the first thing you said about the trademark. So I kind of get this feeling like we've seen this movie before, right? Like the endless lists of all the things, and I know it's just intellectual property, and I know there's like companies who do it, and I'm sure it's just Claude just generates 50,000 things that you might as well get covered while you're doing it, and it's probably only $1 extra per thing or whatever the hell it is. But I really feel like there's just an astonishing feeling of deja vu, isn't there? All this stuff being covered. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do the other. And I know that's not what they're saying, right? I understand that this is just a protective measure or whatever. But what it also seems to me is that, like, okay, fine, someone's managed to ring up an Australian lawyer and get an Australian lawyer to file the trademarks. But, like, is this going to be, like, when were these trademarks filed? Like, how long have they been in place?
I know the answer to that. Yeah, they were filed in 2024 and they were given 2025 last year. So it's been in the making for a while. But I think Australians, or at least the ones that I've talked to, are still furious about 2018. And when they were royals, they kind of dissed Australians and the public, saying things like, why are people lining up to shake our hands? This is so silly. And, I can't believe I'm not getting paid for this. Then, having issues with the Governor General's wife, and there was word that they wanted the entire Governor General's home instead of just one wing, which is what they were given. And then, of course, going on to Fiji and making people cry, and also flying in Jessica from Canada to be her stylist because she was angry at how she looked the first day. So it was a lot of money. It was a lot of treating people badly. Australians especially identify with the underdog. Underdogs are people who work their butt off. They are not underdog erstwhile royals who are like, we left, we want to do things our way. So I think Harry and Meghan are getting themselves confused with what an underdog actually is. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of good feelings in Australia for them. In fact, that change.org position went through the roof. There's another petition, I believe it might be the change.org one. I did not have time to check it, but it's got over 30,000 signatures saying we don't want any public money going towards them. And since Harry still is not an internationally protected person, still does not have British taxpayer security, despite what he said in January, someone's going to have to protect them from the public.
Yeah, I mean, they are. And Australia can't afford to have, someone take out Harry.
Nope.
They definitely can't. So someone's going to, I mean, God, fair enough, sign your change.org petition all you want, but he's going to be protected and it's going to cost Australia a lot of money to have him. I think that what's going to be the real, okay, so I agree, like the whole thing looks like very chaotic. And I've spoken about this before, the incredible amount of planning that goes into proper royal tours, as opposed to somebody just giving you a bell from their mate's kitchen and saying, can we come out and visit you? What I think is actually going to be the make or break factor in Australia, once all the noise of the tour has gone away and they've done their little pictures and people have shelled out their $3,000 and the pool is ready or not ready or whatever it is, I think when you actually sort of step back from it, what's actually going to matter is what the products are and the quality of those products in a country that has fabulous produce. And I think that part two of that is going to be, are the logistics in place? Or is there going to be, once again, are they going to turn up in Australia in 3 weeks' time and you're not going to be able to buy anything? Like, really what should be happening? And I saw Kinsey Schofield on your News Nation show the other day. Like, what needs to happen in Australia is they need to go out there. If they're going to go out there and milk it and rinse it, go out there and milk it and rinse it. Be on every TV show, be on every morning show, be on every podcast, have your QR code where you can order the jam. But my God, if that QR code does not actually result in you being able to order some jam, it's just, again, like we've seen this movie before. This is what happened in America. It was just a complete disaster, the launch. Now, they're now trying to blame that on Netflix, basically saying, oh, well, Netflix were incompetent and we're very good at streaming movies, but no good at selling our products.
Yeah, that's the problem, though. I mean, she gets ahead of herself, and I understand. I also get excited. You guys have seen me before. I'm like, I'm excited, blah, and I mess up a name or whatever. Okay. It's a live broadcast. However, here's the thing. She's done this over and over. And she did it, remember, as ever was American Riviera Orchard. They didn't have the trademark. They couldn't do products under that. So then they had to, and had that American Riviera Orchard worked out, they may have had products ready for the first season of With Love, Meghan, because that, of course, was the plan. You have the show, you can buy stuff off the show, and she gets ahead of herself and just in continual missteps. Now, the other thing about this trip, and I wrote this down, there are 4 things I wanted to really focus on. Number 1, the trip is a mess. She's doing this with Gemma O'Neill, who owes over $550,000 to the Australian tax office. Not cool. Absolutely not cool. You and I pay taxes. Why can't Gemma?
And just to be clear, Paula, their side have told you that they're claiming they didn't know about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So no Googling was done. And then there's the Marcus Anderson aspect.
Can I just say that is a very good example of what I've been saying about how these things are actually really, really difficult to organize. And you need people on the ground who, you know, have local knowledge of who the people are these shady people. Like, to be really honest, usually if people owe $500,000 to the tax board, like, there's other red flags around them. People who are prepared to carry stuff like that often, you know, are not great people. So, okay, that's point 1. What's point 2?
Well, that goes directly into Marcus Anderson, because Marcus Anderson, friends with both of them, you know, they're both, I believe Gemma Anderson is on the board of Soho House Sydney, which is going to be launching. And Marcus says, oh my gosh, Meghan, you need to meet Gemma. Gemma, you need to meet Meghan. This will be great. And this is not the first time that Marcus has kind of slid Meghan into something slightly interesting, but Meghan just takes him at his word and goes ahead and does it instead of doing the proper thing, which is, what a wonderful idea. Let me do my due diligence. So that's number 1. That's the mess. Number 2 is I believe there is a huge hidden agenda in this trip that is really, you know, they're trying to market it as, well, Harry and Meghan both doing their thing. They're both going to go to Melbourne from the 15th to the 16th, where Harry's going to talk about mental health in the workplace. You and I have already laughed our butts off about that. And then they head to Sydney, where Meghan's going to head up the girls' getaway weekend. However, the hidden agenda is twofold. Number 1, it's Soho House, because why would Marcus, out of the goodness of his heart, just be here without saying, oh, we are opening this up later? So I believe she is going to be used in some sort of way to prop up Soho House Sydney. And number 2 is, of course, As Ever Products, check it out. Now, there is some rumor, I have to say this because I was hearing it so much. There is some rumor that there would be a film crew following him around. And there are permits for national parks in Australia around Sydney and Melbourne, under, of course, someone else's name. However, her people have assured me that neither of them are going to be filming either a lifestyle show, As Ever, or something called A Love Letter to Australia. So just so you know, I did check that. That is their response. The reason why I talk about it is, again, you and I have talked many times about how their responses might not be fully informed by the couple themselves. The other issue is there's a huge PR problem. And I'm going to let you talk about that one.
About which one, Paula? Sorry.
The PR problem, because I don't think it's hard to go to a place where people are genuinely upset that you're coming, especially if you haven't issued an apology for what happened in 2018. I mean, how would you go about doing that, Tom?
So I think it's a really complex one, because the chapter and verse on this comes from Valentine Lowe's book, Courtiers. So Valentine Lowe was on that tour. It was incredibly controversial because on the surface, everything looked amazing at the time. She announced that she was pregnant with Archie. They were met by huge crowds. They were met by screaming crowds. But then it emerged afterwards that while they were on that flight, Jason Knauf, who was their PR guy at the time, had broken his collarbone. So he did not go on the trip. He stayed at home and, with a bit of distance from Meghan and Harry, decided that in a moment of clarity that he needed to write to his boss, Simon Case, and accuse Meghan of bullying and question Simon Case about where he should go to, where he should take those complaints. Was there a structure in which those complaints against Meghan could be made? This very famous story of, she bullied two people out of their jobs. She always seems to have someone in her sights. She's X and Y. The people have been undermined. People have been broken. Young women have been broken by them. A name that's often brought up is a very competent PA called Melissa Tuabti, who is one of those people. Even Samantha Cohen, who was known as Samantha the Panther, one of the Queen's oldest aides, was said to have felt a little shaken by her treatment at the hands of Harry and Meghan. And all this unfolded while they were on. So it's very interesting because at the time, the tour looked like a great success. But subsequently, all this stuff emerged that, and admittedly not in Australia, but when they went on as part of that tour to Fiji, she had this freak out at the women's market with the UN Women thing, the comment about, I can't believe I'm not being paid for this. So, our mutual friend, Shauna Kay, is obviously really, really good on this because it's her beat and it's her patch. And she says this thing about the 30,000 people signing. She's like, it's not a joke. They are deadly serious. They do not want the state to be footing the bill for these people to come who they feel insulted them.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just fascinating that they never seem to take accountability. Tom, when you and I trip, stumble, mess up, offend someone, and we take a minute, we think about it, and we apologize if we're, not if, we apologize. But they never seem to apologize for anything. And this is a nation that feels snubbed. They haven't been there in 8 years, and all of a sudden they are really kind of thinking, wow, Meghan must think we're easy targets because we are so laid back and we are so friendly. And they think we're easy targets. We're not. We're not going to do this. So
and the amazing thing is, isn't it, that if you actually did genuinely want to completely reestablish yourself, completely relaunch yourself, completely rebrand yourself, and you were prepared to go and you were prepared to go out in a spirit of genuine humility, I kind of feel in my heart like Australia wouldn't be a kind of bad place to go. Do you know what I mean? It's not the worst idea for Meghan and Harry to go to Australia if they could find a way of doing so completely authentically and with a spirit of humility and service, like genuine service. The problem is they're going there to make money for themselves, and they're trying to, it's just, it feels like it's going to end very, very badly.
Well, it also, in that vein, Tom, I've been to Australia a bunch of times, and it's the perfect place to go on a family vacation. It is the perfect place to bring Archie and Lily and have a wonderful family vacation. But again, they're not really doing that. They're doing that to pick up some coin and to burnish their reputations. And, there is all this issue that a lot of people are wondering if Meghan is going to go to Bondi Beach, the sign of the huge massacre.
I think she has to because of all that thing in Jordan. I mean, if she doesn't go there, it's an absolute disaster. But if she does go there, because unfortunately they've developed this reputation, disaster tourists, it's equally a disaster. I don't know. It's very unfortunate. I don't actually know. I think you'd have. Yeah. It feels to me like she's damned if she does, and she's damned if she doesn't. I would suspect that the way to actually do it would be to genuinely go as a private individual, maybe late at night or maybe early in the morning, making absolutely sure that there is no TV camera there, make absolutely sure it doesn't come out in the media.
100%.
I would think that is probably the only way to do it, and never mention it. Do you know what I mean? Which obviously for them defeats the purpose of it because it's like a tree falling in the forest.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Can I read you something, Paula? Tina Brown has done her Fresh Hell column today. It's all about Tom Bower's book. So I was delighted to be able to read sections of this to Tom on the podcast earlier when I was recording. Please tune into the podcast later for me and Paula and Tom Bower and Plum Sykes. she's written this really interesting piece saying that the Windsors are now stuck in a very invidious position because they've got these two grifters, right, who need money, who are desperate for money, and that there are perils to the monarchy when peripheral royals hang out with the uber rich and start to consider themselves, by comparison, broke. She says, look in the crystal ball, people. Bad enough that Spotify bailed on the Sussexes and Netflix failed to renew their 2020 $100 million deal. Now the streamer has put a fork in Meghan's basted turkey, with love Meghan, and cut loose her domestic goddess home products spin-off after only 11 months, leaving a $10 million pile-up of tea, baking mix, and strawberry jam. The Sussexes' revenue streams are starting to dry up. They will soon be heading for that hinterland of freebie hell that draws them further and further into cheesy commercial gigs, or worse, dubious transactional acquaintances willing to underwrite their faux royal lifestyle and their astronomical annual security costs. Their upcoming trip to Australia, where Meghan will appear as the up-close star attraction at a paid girls' weekend hosted by the podcast Her Best Life in the ballroom of the Intercontinental Hotel, Sydney's Coogee Beach, has the whiff of Fergie's post-divorce money-making schemes.
I mean, yeah, of course. You and I were the first ones to say she's pulled a full Fergie. It's obvious that this is what is going on. Now, of course, today, she and her people are letting out that, oh no, the Meghan projects at Netflix are still going on. They finally found a director. We can start laying bids on whether all of those projects are ever going to come out, the TV and movie projects. But it's just very unfortunate. And what I find even more unfortunate is one of the reasons why people are so skeptical about this duo is that what they say often is not true or is demonstrably wrong. So again, we go back to January when Harry's people let it slip that they had security. They were told they absolutely have it. Well, they don't. And by the way, they're probably not going to get it because the Labour government is so under fire and the politicians are terrified about giving them the taxpayer-funded security. Now, this also has implications for Invictus Games, which they will do. And I have a story coming out later this week about how Invictus is in a lot of trouble, Invictus Birmingham. And, they keep saying, it's so great. It's demonstrably not. We're doing this. They're not doing this. Someone else is doing this for us. Not going to happen. So, the bigger problem I have for us at this point, they have almost no credibility.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it, isn't it? There's just a yawning credibility gap, a yawning authenticity gap. It's interesting, actually, this Tina Brown piece today. I mean, she comes up with this, with all my love to Tina, who gave me my first job at the Tina Brown, who gave me my first job at the Daily Beast. And indeed, it came up with the name The Royalist. This is her solution, and it's, well, let me read it and see what you think.
Please.
The rupture, before the Sussexes crash and burn, the House of Windsor needs to put aside Schadenfreude and grip the problem. Give Harry and Meghan a limited international role. Cough up a turnkey pied-à-terre for them in Buckingham Palace, where none of the rest of the family wants to live anyway. Pay their damn UK security bill. It won't be a good look if Harry, a veteran of 2 tours of Afghanistan, is taken out by a nut job. In return, the Sussexes must put a sock in it.
Yes,
Thoughts?
But here's the problem. They can't put a sock in it. They've shown time and time again they will agree to a role with parameters and then bust open the parameters every single time. They did that with the Queen, when she said no to half in and half out. Okay. They said, we won't use our titles, okay, our HRH to sell things. And every time they keep busting through the parameters because in their mind, this is what I believe that in their mind, they think that they're owed. So they're going to get a foot in the door. And then once the door is ajar, they'll bust it right open to get what they think they're owed. Now, if they are allowed back in Buckingham Palace, if they are allowed a pied-à-terre and some sort of role, what's to stop them from breaking the rules? And then what does Buckingham Palace do? Okay, we're done. See you later. Again?
I think that's exactly the point, Paula. And I think that well, I hear what Tina's saying, right? Which is that there is a structural problem with the position of the spare, that these incredibly pampered and entitled men are sort of, given everything, every whim and every need and every service. And then they're told that they're surplus to requirements and bugger off and, get your own money. But that's exactly the problem. In return, the Sussexes must put a sock in it. They won't. Before we go, I just want to tell you about the Prince Harry trial.
Yes, please.
The witness evidence of which came to an astonishing end yesterday with Gavin Burrows, the private detective.
The liar? The guy who said he did something and then took it all back?
It was absolutely mad. It was absolutely crazy. It was the craziest thing. He basically was sitting in this solicitor's office in Spain with this mate of his, who's obviously his legal advisor, who literally looks like a vehicle clamper. Do you know what I mean? Or like a repo man. It's the whole thing is so mental. And he's sitting there and he's just going, David Sherborne's going, he's sitting there with a tie and then shorts, and you can see his knees coming up.
What? He wore shorts in court?
That side. His face is roasting. He's bloody boiling. He's like...
Wait, he wore shorts in court?
Well, next he did it remotely. He beamed in remotely because he said he was so worried for his security. He was obviously just living in Spain and his ill-gotten gains. And with all the old lags, because that's where all the old lags like to live. Not that he is an old lag. He is an unimpeachable character. But it was so funny because David Sherborne kept going, Mr. Burrows, I put it to you that you can suggest away all you like, mate. You are desperate. You've got nothing. You're clutching at straws. And at one point, the judge goes, Mr. Burrows, please, please. And then Sherborne starts asking more questions. And he goes to him, Mr. Sherborne, stop asking these questions. It's just going to provoke another tirade from Mr. Burrows. It was the most hysterical thing I've ever seen. And it was like at the end of all of this, $50 million, that whole case is going to go to hell. Harry's going to win on the one thing about the flight, about the blagging of the flight. My prediction, maybe he may win on nothing because Burrows' evidence was so damning for their side. They really needed Burrows to be credible. He completely wasn't. And basically, they've spent $50 million arguing about whether or not a journalist illegally got an ex-directory phone number 25 years ago. It's absolutely insane. And it was like the most farcical. It was like Joe Orton had written a kind of slapstick farce about a courtroom drama. It was the mentalist, craziest thing.
It does sound a little SNL, but also, what the funniest thing is to me, Tom, even if Harry wins on that one count out of the 14, we're going to be reading it all over the world like Harry wins in court.
Dragon Slayer. Yeah, it'll be the whole Dragon Slayer thing again. Definitely.
So bizarre. I really wish that had been public. We got this case in America called Afroman against the cops in Adams County, Ohio, it's amazing. These cops raided Afroman's house on a BS tip from a meth lady. And they thought they were looking for a dungeon and all these drugs and all this other stuff. And of course there wasn't any. And it was all caught on Afroman's security tape. So all these cops go in and they're all pretty big dudes. They're, Ohio cops. And one lady, flips off the camera and then goes and anyway, they cut the security. The sheriff is in the house, and as he's raiding the house, he like eyes a lemon pound cake and gets really excited and cuts himself a slice. And then they end up stealing money and $4,000 in the house and then only give back $3,600. Anyway, Afroman did not sue them. Instead, he mocked them on YouTube and TikTok with songs like Lemon Pound Cake and all this stuff. So the cops then sued Afroman. And why I'm telling you this is because the entire case of the cops suing Afroman was publicized, and it is now the best thing anyone will ever watch on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, because Afroman has then put that into his songs. And he also wore the most outrageous, amazing American flag suit and still won. And I'm kind of wishing that Gavin Burrows' case had been Afroman.
Yes, let's try and get him on the show. And
Obviously.
Let's televise court proceedings from here on in. Paula, thanks so much. Paula is, of course, top on-air talent at News Nation. You are probably watching this either on my YouTube channel or her YouTube channel, so there's no point telling you about that. Her amazing Substack, Scoop, Paula Froelich. And please, if I may ask you one thing, please come on to the channel this evening. It'll be right here, the official Daily Beast Royalist podcast with our star guest, Tom Bower, the author of Revenge. And what else was I going to ask you? There was something else I wanted to ask. Oh, yeah. Go on Tina Brown's Substack and tell her that she should come on my show. Very nicely. We don't want to troll her. We don't want to flame her. Just, Tina, you're amazing. Please go on Tom's show. I didn't know you were a founder of the Royal. I didn't know you're the founder of the Royalist. We need you. We need you. Yes. Okay. Brilliant. Paula, love you so much. And
Ditto, Tom.
We'll watch it this evening. Join in the comments, and we can watch along with everybody and make comments.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Oh, I've got to press this button. Sorry.